Good Tuesday night. Breaking news tonight as we kick off Spicer & Company. New updates on a horrific shooting at an elementary school about 85 miles west of San Antonio. We've got a lot to break down tonight. Good evening. I'm Sean Spicer.
And I'm Lindsay Keith. And Sean, Texas Governor Greg Abbott confirming that 14 children and one teacher are dead after a gunman opened fire at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. All right, we do want to bring in our panel now with analysis. We have retired Navy SEAL and former FBI agent Jonathan Gillum and Marco Galbraith, who is an active shooter response trainer, who is with us now. Marco, I'm going to start with you because obviously a lot of the news that we're hearing coming out is how quickly law enforcement acted to this shooter. What can you tell us about how this might have unfolded in your experience in the past?
If it sounds like it was a pursuit, so they immediately went in after the suspect, which is what they're supposed to do. Unfortunately, some agencies that I know of have a policy that you have to wait for 4 officers to get there before you enter that building. It doesn't sound like these officers did that. They did what they were supposed to do. They went immediately in and engaged that suspect. Every shot that's fired, when they hear that, they've got to go in because that's somebody's life that's been taken or that's somebody's been shot at. So it sounds like that they did the right thing and went immediately in and stopped that threat. That's what we've got to do. It'll be interesting to know if there was a school resource officer on scene, if they had the ability to radio him or her ahead of time and say, lock down the school, we've got a pursuit with a shooter headed that way. That's going to be the interesting part that I'd like to know is if they were able to make that call. And then what door did the shooter come in? Was it the front door? Was the school locked? We don't necessarily have to be on lockdown, but the school shouldn't have open access for somebody just to walk in like that. A lot of questions are going to have to be answered here.
Jonathan, you're a former FBI agent. The last major shooting that we saw, people were questioning some of the signs that should have been caught, right? The mental health concerns that the student exhibited. This particular suspect has been killed, but when they go back, what are they going to be looking for to figure out what they should have seen or if there are any signs that this was coming?
Well, it's interesting, Sean, all the things that we've seen in the past with almost every single shooter has been that they have this mental illness record and past that follows them. And in many cases, you can go all the way back to Columbine where they had regular counseling sessions with individuals and multiple run-ins with the law in the past in some cases. But here's one thing. I want to go on what Marco said because I think this is very important that right now, the one thing we can say about this incident, that we can say about what happened in New York at the subway and has continued to take place around this country is that we are not looking at these areas as soft targets. And in an elementary school especially, there's going to be a certain amount of people who come in and out of that building. Most of those people are going to be known, and after a certain hour, these schools should be completely locked down except for one entrance and one exit so that people have to enter through that area, and then that's where you concentrate your resource or law enforcement officer or extra eyes just to watch in case somebody's approaching. They don't do this. This costs no money to do this, but we have to start looking at these elementary schools, schools in general, subway platforms, these things as soft targets where a potential incident can happen. Because as you see, all somebody has to do is get in there and then they have access to all these people because of the nature of what this facility is. So we have to start doing that, especially when there's a shooting going on and they're in a chase leading towards that area. It should have already been locked down.
You know, it's interesting as we continue to find out about this shooter, Marco. He was only 18 years old, and he actually, Governor Abbott said this, that he had gone to Uvalde High School. So as Jonathan's saying, he would have maybe been a familiar face. Uvalde is such a small community. It's not like he drove from far away to target this school.
Yeah, and something we have to think about are some key words, and we used it before, soft target, hard target, but We don't want a threat assessment team is critical in schools. Threat assessment teams are free to set up. With the right guidance, they work. Every facility, especially schools, have to have a threat assessment team. And that is a way, it's non-adversarial. We're not trying to get people in trouble, but it's set up as an avenue to let people know this person is starting to go a little sideways. So let's get them some help. Threat assessment team failed at Virginia Tech. Having a threat assessment team failed at this grocery store in Buffalo. We have to have the threat assessment team set up, and that's an avenue to report things and get law enforcement involved in this. This particular incident, I don't know if the threat assessment team would have helped because he wasn't from that school. But I guarantee you, we're going to find clues from his school or his family where people saw things, but they didn't act on it, because it's not my business. It's not me to get involved in. It's the threat assessment team.
Real quick, I just want to ask Jonathan about that, because this is a great point, Mark. Jonathan, as an FBI agent, somebody calls you and says, hey, there's an individual that's showing signs, that's posted stuff on the internet. Where's the line about with respect to their privacy versus where the law enforcement can come in and say this is worthy of an investigation? Because I imagine that if you just went off every call, you wouldn't be stopping investigating. So I only have a few seconds left, but real quick, where's that line between something that's worth being investigated?
Well, Sean, there's no problem with law enforcement once they get a call approaching somebody to see and assess that individual. There's no law that stops that. They're not taking the person into custody. They're not digging into their records. If law enforcement gets the call about somebody like this, they should approach and they should talk to this person to see what their behavior is. And then if there is alarming behavior that this person poses, if there's a record of it, that should be noted, and then they can further that investigation. But that's not even happening.
Jonathan Gillum and Marco. Yeah. Jonathan Gill, Marco Galbraith, appreciate your time this evening. Sorry it's for such a tragic event. Hope to have you back soon.
Thank you.